Okay, Susan? Oh, that's good. Never talked to me like that before. So let's see if I can make that. Thought I had made that. Oh. Anyway, so about working with difficult customers. That's a common thing whenever you're dealing with customers. Of course, a lot of them are going to be unhappy. That's why they're talking to you. If they're happy, they're going to talk with their friends, right? But they're talking with you because they have a problem. They're going to be frustrated. And it's just human psychology, right? If you're trying to work towards something and then something stops you, then that gives you a feeling of negative emotion, which you might refer to as anger. And it may or may not be something to do with somebody else, but it's what you have. And working in the customer service, you're going to come across that a lot. Now, as it says here, most of our customers are going to be easy to deal with, but some not so much. So what do? We be sort of forgiving of that. We understand that we have bad days, customers have bad days, and it's not really a contest that we're going to be trading insults with them or anything like that. Yeah, all right, so I am going to go through this kind of quickly. Yeah, the difficult situations, there's a list of things here. Lots of things could happen that make a customer unhappy. We're not at that yet. But it's good if we can sort of understand that. There it is. There's a big list. Broken promises, waiting a long time, confusing technology, poor quality. All of those things can make customers unhappy. And so what do we're sort of standing between the customer and that. So how do we handle that? Here's a good sort of model. And I say it's a model. I mean, this is not necessarily the way the world works exactly, but it's a way that you can imagine it. And maybe this would help. So the idea here is that when we're having an interaction with a customer, we remember all that stuff that we had in the first 3 lessons where we talked about, understanding, everybody's seeking to be understood. You can't really work with the customer until you understand them. So don't be confused by this red mark going through the I understand. What that means is we don't say to the customer directly, I understand. What we do is we show the customer that we're trying to understand them. And that requires that we actually listen to them first. We can't just sort of say, I understand. We have to say, okay, they start talking, we start listening. All right. And we let them do their data dump, what they're going to say. And sort of we engage in them in an active listening, asking questions for verification, indicating our desire to understand. And then once we get to the point where we have understood their issue, then we make them an offer. And so making an offer could be something like, I can have a technician with you in 1 hour, that type of thing, or we will install this at, so it's going to be a particular type of a service at a particular time. That's what we mean by an offer. And then we'll check to see that that offer is suitable to the customer. And if it is, we'll get that agreement. If you look at this, working with difficult customers, I hope you can see by this graphic that listening is kind of the key that we start with. But here is a little model to use as well. Listen, apologize, solve, and thank. Now, apologizing, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're accepting blame for anything. So this is not sort of a blaming thing, but the person has been inconvenienced, and it could quite be that, and most likely, I mean, they're dealing with our systems. So it's something that's in our systems. We're supposed to be helping them with our systems. So yeah, there is a good reason to apologize. We apologize for our systems. Maybe it's nothing that we did personally, but we're representing that system, and that system has let the customer down. So we do need to apologize for that. And before that, we do need to listen to make sure that we get all the details, but also all the emotion. And we've talked about this in previous classes. That the customer is not really ready to enter into sort of any bargaining or negotiating on a solution until they feel like that you've understood them. And so that's also brought up in this point here, letting the customer vent venting means to sort of just say all those things that they're thinking about. If they keep shouting at you, that means they think you're not listening. And so the best way to get over that is not to interrupt them, and not to sort of say, yeah, I know, and it's just let them go eventually, and then show that you are trying to understand, and eventually that will stop. So listening actively. So things like, we can say, though they're going on, we don't want to be interrupting what they're saying, but we also don't want them to think that we're just ignoring them. So we say, we have these sort of things in our language. We look at them, we nod our head, we say, go on, I see, I understand. Another thing we can do is we can paraphrase what they've said and repeat back to them. So I think what you were saying was, and then repeat it, but in different words. And that way, it's a way of confirming that you understand what they say. It helps you and it helps them, so that they know that you've understood them. The little cartoon at the bottom is about this little girl, Lucy, who was in a cartoon strip that went from the 1950s through the 1970s. She's kind of I'd say she's borderline sociopath, right? I mean, she just really didn't get it that you had to try and understand other people. Anyways, that's what that cartoon's about. I think it's kind of true in this diagram, right? If you've ever had some painful experiences, maybe that makes it easier for you to understand other people who have painful experiences. But certainly, if you work in a service desk, you're going to get some painful experiences. And maybe that will help you, or maybe you are just naturally have a ability to empathize. We all do to a certain extent, and we can encourage that, because that helps us to work with our customers. If we can, so to empathize would mean to kind of feel what they feel, I guess you would say, which is why we try to feel what you feel, to be able to look at them and say, yeah, I can see if I was in that situation, it would not feel so great. And so that situation might be typically in a service desk. It might be, I'm trying to get a report completed, and I got a deadline by 3:30, and I got a meeting with my manager, and the computer system's broken. I mean, I'm not feeling too great. I'm sure you could sort of understand how that would be. So maybe the customer is very upset, and it's good to actually acknowledge that. I'm sorry, I can see why you would feel upset. If I was in your position, I would feel upset. Okay, so that sort of brings them around to you. Then you can start working together. Now, the idea of these buttons here about the pausing, acknowledging, clarifying, and responding is about that, right? We need to take some time and give the customer that space to sort of communicate not just the actual facts, but communicate their emotion, so that they feel understood. Then we can go and negotiate. So a lot of this is kind of repetitive, but I hope you get the idea. So once they have mentioned all of their issues, and we've done what we can to show that we are trying to understand, and we have come to a little bit of an understanding of that, then we can restate it to get a verification that we do understand. So I think this is what you were saying. This is what the problem was. Is that right? And then we can start moving ahead to some kind of a resolution. So a resolution, a good idea to get a resolution to a problem would be to use a problem-solving method. This problem-solving method is not specific to IT. Problem-solving is basically what makes the modern world, right? I mean, that's how we sort of advance. As we see an issue, we see that nothing is ever perfect, and we sort of build and make things a bit better than they were before. And so how do we do that? You could say this is a scientific method, but this is the way that individuals, scientists, and groups of people can advance, I think. So we evaluate a problem, gather as much information as we can about it. Maybe some of these things are familiar to you too, because we do try and teach you this at college. You'll be given assignments, projects, and this is the thing, we call them a problem. You learn by solving a problem, right? And so you will go through these processes. You'll gather information, you'll break the problem down into individual components, identify multiple solutions that are possible for that problem, and then select the best solution, and then go ahead and work on creating that solution. Now, that solution could be a computer program, or it could be, if we're in the service desk, it could be a intervention in solving, a network issue, some kind of configuration or installation, that type of thing. Then we examine the results and we test and review. This is, as I said, this is a general problem-solving method that is kind of used everywhere. Right, there's a lot there about anger and empathy. I'm not going to sort of go through that in too much detail because I think we've already sort of covered those kinds of ideas. What can we do to calm the customer? I think you got the idea that they're going to be more calm if they feel that you are trying to understand them. And so that's the approach that we're going to take. Now, it could come to the situation where the customer is, and so all of these are on that issue, but it could come to the point where the customer is so upset that they start to behave in a way which they would not normally do, or we hope they wouldn't, but is gone over the line, if you know what I mean. So if the customer is so upset that they, or just not able to control themselves, and they step over the line, start being physically or verbally abusive, well, then that there's no discussion at that point. All right, if the customer is starting to use offensive language, we'll sort of say, well, look, please use a professional language. And if they continue, well, it's over, right? We don't accept that. We don't accept that, sort of waving hands and thumping on the desks and using abusive language or offensive language in any way. If a customer does that, we have to end that interaction. Maybe get somebody else involved or whatever. So, I mean, there's a spectrum, right? I mean, customers will be a certain amount of angry. That's fine. But if it becomes sort of personal and it becomes sort of abusive, then it's not fine. And we don't accept that. And so that has to sort of be made clear to the customer, and that interaction is ended at that point, and will not start again until that's sort of resolved. So why it could be that customers have unrealistic expectations. So part of our job is actually educating customers on what is possible and what isn't. We talked about this in previous lessons as well. We don't actually sort of say to them, you can't do that. We'll say, this is what we can do, but we educate them in what is possible. So will dissatisfied customers do business? Yeah. If they feel that they see a resolution is being attempted and made. That if they don't, then they're not likely to sort of come through. Now, here's two words that go along with this, and they seem fairly similar, but they're a little bit different, and they're worth explaining. Follow through and follow up. Now, when you're working in the service desk, you have to understand that this is something, it's not sort of just random ad hoc. It's a professional system that's been properly planned out, and we have a system and a way of doing it. And it's because we know that this is what works. And so what we know works is that we record every time a customer comes in with an issue, an incident that needs to be solved. We record that into a system. That's our incident management system. You saw that a little bit, that you guys who've done the OTRS part of the project design. So we go into a system like that and we record what's happened. So that record is there, it's forever. What the purpose of keeping that record there is so that all of the information regarding the incident is available to people, and also so that the incident doesn't get lost and unsolved. We've got that kept for us. We're not relying on our memory that so-and-so came in with this issue and did I fix it or not? Well, we don't have to remember it. It's in the computer system. We know there where the issue is, who had the issue, and if it's been solved. And so the follow through and follow up are about that, and they will relate to our incident management system. So we're going to follow through. We're going to check on our system and see if the incident has been resolved. If it has been resolved, then we're going to keep all the promises that were made in that resolution, right? That is part of the follow through. Follow through, that means that everything that was said that was going to happen happens. Follow up, well, that means that you could have made promises to your customer that that you required other people in your department to work on. So your follow up would be to contact them, to contact the other people in the IT department to make sure that they've done what they said they would do. Going back to follow through, another thing I should have mentioned there with follow through is that you should contact the customer after everything is done and just make sure that they're actually happy with it. So two things there: follow through, yeah, and follow up. I hope I haven't messed those up. I'm going to go back to that follow through and follow up because I think I did. So follow through, yet, yeah, you're going to be contacting the customer. Follow up is making sure that it's resolved afterwards. Following up can repair a damaged relationship, as it says. All right. So the other thing here is, as it says there, learn to respond, not to react. Stay calm. If you can, it's almost a sort of a philosophical thing. I mean, I sort of come across this stuff that's just called Stoic. But Stoicism, the idea there, and it's found in lots of different things. I think it's even found in different religions, maybe in the Islamic religion. But the idea being that you have a daily sort of approach to things. So every day is a new day. You do a little bit of meditation, I suppose you'd say, but you think about what you're going to do in that day, and you record what somehow. It could be in your mind or somehow. So there's that. But other features of Stoicism are that you recognize the things that you have control over, and that's where you focus your energy. The things that you don't have control over, that there's nothing that you can do about them, you don't let them sort of give you a negative emotion. And so that's what it is. I mean, there's an old saying about that, which is, I can't even, but the idea being to concentrate on the things that you can do and don't worry about the things that you can't do, and to know the difference between them. All right. So keeping calm, respond, don't react. Now I want to make a little bit of a point about this responding and reacting. Okay, so reaction is kind of instinctive. I mean, you hear, a loud bang behind you, you turn around, right? Somebody shouts at you, and you look at them, and maybe you're ready to shout back. That's a kind of reaction. A response requires that you actually sort of stop and you think about what's happened, and that it's not an instinctive response. It's a response which is more sort of slower and careful and thought out. And the benefit of having a response is that sometimes when we react in ways which don't benefit us or another person. And for example, a person shouts at us and then we slap them. I mean, that might be a reaction, but it's not really helpful. Whereas a response would be, they shout at you, and then you sort of, you'd ask them, is there a reason for this or whatever? Now, sometimes that's obviously not going to work depending on them, but we did mention that in a previous slide when they sort of step over the line. But in the service desk, things are usually within a framework of not being too physical. And so, yeah, we should be able to sort of keep ourselves calm. So here's some ideas. I hope that you've got some ideas yourself, how to stay calm under pressure. One thing is just being prepared. Um, but other things are to sort of slow your breathing, drink water, these types of things. This point here about the different sides of your brain. Um, this is sort of just a model of human behavior that some people have come up with, and it seems to describe things pretty well. And so that's why people are sort of stuck with the model. As I said, it's a model of human behavior by our social scientists and neuroscientists, and they think it describes what happens. No doubt it'll evolve a bit and change a bit, but this is what we think at the moment. So different side of our brain actually controls or affects behavior different ways. So the left side of the brain is more for memorized data, linear thinking, logical thinking. Right side of the brain is emotion, versatility, creativity, and sense of humor. And what is said is that different people, um, with their personalities, etc., but also just that with different people, different side of the brain seems to have the upper hand or to be stronger over the other one or predominates over the other one. So some people are more left-handed and left-brained, and some people are more right-brained. Now, nobody is 100% left-brained and nobody is 100% right-brained, because that would mean they'd have only a half a brain, right? I mean, everybody's got two halves of brain, so we're all have both of these things, but just in different people, it's worth looking at from personality point of view, I suppose. Different people seem to be more predominantly the right seems to be taking control more often than the left does. And so for other people, the left seems to be taking control more often than the right does. So, I mean, and we see this, there's certain people like accountants and mathematicians and stuff like that, you know, they like to sit alone and just work on math problems and stuff, right? Linear thinking, logical thinking. Whereas you have your other artist type people, and people just like to spend a lot of time talking to people and, you know, holding children or whatever. I'm not saying that that's a female thing, men and women, but you know, just hanging out with their friends and stuff like that. Now, as I said, most people are both, but some people are a little bit more on each of those. And so that helps us to understand ourselves and also to understand other people. So if you think you're more logical, then you might be a left brain person. If you think you're more emotional, then you might be a right brain. Now, bearing in mind, as I said, we're all left and right, but you might be more of one than the other. So if you notice these things happening, that could be because of stress. And so what can you do to reduce stress? I actually have my watch. So that watch there, that's a Garmin watch. And what it does is, I don't know if you can see the graph at the top there, but it's a sports watch, but it actually measures my heartbeat. And from that, it gives me a graph every day of what my stress levels are. So that's kind of cool. So, I mean, we are moving into that territory where there's going to be a lot more of that. And the hints that I get for that is to sort of go walking. There's lots of things you can do to reduce stress. Being physically active is pretty good for it, I've found. And that's what I've read. And that's the indications that I get on that. But here's some other things you can do. Take a deep breath. Slow your breathing down at least once a day, you know. So, you know, you take a deep breath and hold it in, and then let it out, and hold it out, and let it. Do this a bit, and it really brings your heart rate down, and does bring your blood pressure down too. It's awesome. I try and do that. So I do believe these things are kind of useful. Now the sipping water, yeah, that's a good thing too. Water is the best thing to drink. There's mine. Just a little sip of water, as it says there, it lubricates the throat. It is the best thing to drink, and amazingly, it's the cheapest, isn't it? So, you know, it doesn't leave behind any sort of issues of. It's just a great thing to drink. Positive imagery. Okay, so now we're going into the realms of the sort of self-help people. I'm not going to call myself as one of the self-help people, but yeah, apparently this stuff works. I mean, obviously being positive rather than negative. Um, Imagining in your mind the good things that you can do, um, and once you've imagined them, then going and doing them, that type of thing. And when I say the good things you can do, I mean how you could be more than you are right now. Um, and that's possible, right? I mean, that's why you're here at the college, right? How could you be more than you were yesterday? Well, maybe by learning some stuff, maybe by meeting some people. There's a lot of things that I could do, and maybe by facing some challenges and overcoming those challenges, I could be more than I was before. Maybe by making life better for other people, by being a customer service representative and solving people's problems, I could be better or more than I was before. Yeah, and so, and that's yeah, that kind of self-talk, I think. So if you've had a interaction with a customer which has been a bit rough, then one thing that you could do to sort of make things better after that is to sort of disengage, go for a little walk, take a bit of time out, drink some water, as it says, and then when you feel a bit more relaxed, then come back in. Yeah, there we go. Take a short break. Now, avoiding caffeine. I really like coffee, but yeah, it does have. It is going to not make you calm if you want to be calm, and you are a bit excitable. Maybe don't drink too much caffeine. I haven't had any today, so and I think it's a good thing not to have too much. All right. So summary: most customers are good, but everybody kind of is going to lose it sometime, right? I mean, one of the things that while you're doing your self-talk on how you can be more than you were yesterday, tomorrow, how you can be more than you were yesterday. One of the things could be in sort of controlling yourself so you don't lose it so often. I mean, probably most of you guys don't lose it at all. Maybe it's just us old guys, right? I don't know, but yeah. So bearing in mind that you are going to have customers who are going to lose it sometimes. So what are some things that we can do to overcome that? And as we mentioned, there's a certain level of losing it, which is over the edge, and we can't interact with that. But below that, so up to that point, we can listen to them, let them talk, try to understand them, then review with them that what we think we've understood, make sure that they agree with us on that, then make some kind of offer to solve that issue, and then follow up on that. So we did talk about all of that. Right. Being prepared, using calming. That's it. I'm going to stop because I think I'm kind of done there.